All right, here's another thought of pure textualism for you guys. Not assuming things exist in the Constitution where they don't exist, and not assuming that things that are in the Constitution don't mean what they literally say. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at the traditional power for ending wars. Welcome to Whatsoever More or Less. My name is Jason, and I want to talk about Article 2, Section 2, Clause 2, the treaty power, which basically the president himself is the one who proposes it. Okay, Article 2 is the executive branch, which the executive branch is the president. Okay, then we have the proposal of treaties powers in Article 2, Section 2, same clause that also, Clause 2, that includes things like nominating, if I'm not mistaken, senators, all that kind of stuff. So powers. And basically, it requires 2/3 of the Senate to basically give advice and consent, basically approve of that treaty power. This is the traditional power for ending wars. Now, if you look at the word treaty, there's an automatic assumption from the 1787, when the Constitution was ratified or proposed. There's an automatic meaning of it. It doesn't have enumerated powers or jurisdictions such as does Article 3 or Article 1. But instead, what it has is it has just the treaty power. Because treaties were used for exchanges of land, for agreements about who's allowed to pass through where, here and there, all that kind of stuff. And basically to end wars, to set the terms for ending a war. Okay, so part of why I bring this up, of course, is again, the War Powers Resolutions is very controversial because the War Powers Resolutions assumes to tell the president when his power to start war and end war is to take place. The Constitution grants no such power to any branch to define the powers of the other branches. Okay, this was clearly discussed by the founders again and again. The judicial branch cannot define the powers of Congress or the states or the executive branch. The executive branch, the same thing. The legislative branch, the same thing. All of them have their Article 6, Clause 3 oath. Okay, and somebody's going to be like, yeah, but that didn't work out well. I get it, yes. We should have amended the Constitution, perhaps, or else just been a more moral and religious people, as Adams would have said. I think the latter is the better solution, personally, right? If you were to look at the tradition of the founders, they each had different views, the founding presidents. Yet one thing that's common when you look at all of them is caution to not exercise powers that they shouldn't be exercising. George Washington stepped down after 2 terms. Jefferson was hesitant to go too far against the Barbary Pirates, even though Hamilton said, look, the Constitution left you wide open for doing that. I was at the convention, you're wide open for doing that one. Adams was hesitant to exercise the veto power, right? Etc., etc. Madison, even though he knew that the 10th Amendment literally said what it said, and that nullification therefore was a power reserved to the states, said we interpose, right, in the Virginia resolutions. They were humble, they were cautious. Okay, that's the tradition of the founders. This is a moral and a religious people here. But again, it's usurpation. Anytime one branch presumes to attempt to redistribute the powers, or in a way that's inobvious with the text. Okay, you could say, well, Congress was granted the power to declare war. Yes, they were granted the power to declare war. Show me where it's an exclusive power. What's the verb declare mean? We know that it was switched from the word make to the verb declare for a reason. The president's duty is the take care clause, which is to the law of the land. The law of the land is defined in Article 6, Clause 2 as the treaties, the Constitution, the laws, and the treaties. Okay, so that means, okay, if a law has been passed and it actually exercises a legitimate power that's granted to Congress, right, then the president has to enforce that law at his kind of discretion and understanding of what's acceptable. The treaties, if they've been made even by a previous president, a treaty is a treaty, has to be honored. It can't be undone except for by another treaty procedure. Treaties cannot exercise powers reserved to Congress or reserved to the states. Treaties can only exercise the traditional powers of treaties. The 10th Amendment would become meaningless otherwise. The president is also responsible to the Constitution. So on day one, when George Washington stepped into office, even though there were no really existing treaties, although there is Article 6, Clause 1, which says the existing debts shall still be considered valid against the United States, something to that effect. So yes, there was that. I take that back. Okay, so there was the treaties that he had to take care of, and the Constitution itself on day one when stepping into office, which the Constitution itself guarantees certain things: common defense, general welfare, domestic tranquility. Really, the common defense and the domestic tranquility would be the key aspects of the proper application of the enforcement branch, right? Military, right? Anyhow, I want to point to one more thing real quick here, you guys. Historically, we saw the Native American tribes as sovereign nations. Okay, I want you to look and see how many declarations of war Congress made against the Native American nations that we subdued versus how many of them we pressured out and then made them sign treaties. Okay, so the wars were started by way of the executive branch consistently, typically in response to some kind of growing hostilities, a state of war. Look at examination number 1 by Hamilton, where a state of war exists. No declaration of war is necessary. Look what Ezra Taft Benson said about communism back in his talk, Proper Role of Government. I consider us at an existing state of war with global communism, a global communist conspiracy, Muslim extremism too, same thing. I think we're at this point now in an existing state of war, right? Or Islamic extremism, however you say that, right? But anyhow, with the Native American tribes, they were consistently started by way of just an existing state of war, and then the executive taking action, not asking for a declaration of war from Congress, okay? And then they were ended by way of treaties. Traditionally, this is the way that wars are ended. So the War Powers Resolution is usurpation. There's no other way to say it. Look, Article 3, Section 2, Clause 2 gives Congress the power to limit the Supreme Court's jurisdiction. There's nothing in Article 2 giving the Congress the power to limit the President's powers. Where one thing exists in one point of the Constitution, we can assume that if they meant for it to exist in another portion, they could have included it, but they didn't. Article 1, Section 10, Clause 3 limits the power of states to take a posture of war to only responding to imminent danger or imminent threats or invasions, right? And then waiting for Congress afterwards once that's stopped. To try to apply that, superimpose that on Article 2, again, is inappropriate. It only exists in Article 1, Section 10, Clause 3, and is relevant to the states. It is not relevant to the executive branch. So Dallin H. Oaks says to be able to declare something unconstitutional requires a lot of talent, and we should only do it when we can really prove our case. I think I can prove my case again and again, you guys. President Benson told us to learn to recognize when a law is constitutionally unsound. I think I've done my work. Prove me wrong. I keep getting complaints. And here's one more big one, you guys. Look at what happened after the Civil War with the Native American tribes. Okay, this is the big one. After the Civil War with the Native American tribes, we basically stopped doing treaties with them. We started just pushing them around and telling them, hey, this is United States land. We own this entire continental United States. Get on the reservations. We're not asking. We're not doing a treaty with you or anything. Okay, that should tell us a little bit about what the Civil War did to the soul of America. Okay, we violated our conscience. I would have you look at the book, The Anatomy of Peace. Once you have betrayed yourself, and you know you've betrayed yourself, you will continue down that path of self-betrayal, most likely, and you will continue to find justifications for why you betrayed yourself. Okay, the path continued. What was done to the South then was done to the Native American tribes. Okay, now, just because someone lives in a state of sin that has taken covenants doesn't mean that covenant can no longer be powerful in the life of that person if they just turn to the Lord again and repent. His arm is stretched out still. Anyone who says the United States is beyond saving, that our Constitution is beyond saving, I will never agree with you on that. That the Civil War was the end of it all. It's too big of a sin. Sorry, we're not savable at this point. Dang, dude. Learn about repentance, please. Okay? All right, so who has the traditional powers for ending wars, you guys? Article 2, Section 2, Clause 2. Can the Wars Powers Resolution take that from the President and give that to Congress? No, it cannot. Okay, that is the biggest point. Once again, you guys, War Powers Resolution is unconstitutional. It's been rejected by so many people. It is a traditional interpretation to say that the power to declare war is exclusively in Congress, and so therefore all war powers are exclusively in Congress. That's ridiculous. The military, the existence, the definition of the thing of a military is the power to declare war. The thing is what it is, okay? To try to say it isn't what it is, and that the president is the commander-in-chief of it, right? Sorry, dude. It doesn't have to say war powers when the thing is what it is, okay? To develop post roads. You don't have to clarify that that's going to be for sending letters and this and that and the other. It's post roads, dudes. Done deal, right? To establish weights and measures. You don't have to clarify that scales are going to be used. The thing is what it is. Weights are what they are. Measures are what they are. Militaries are what militaries are. Commanders and chiefs are what they are. Okay. All right. Look at the history of the United States. Again, I will point to the Native American tribes, which in the days of John Marshall, we saw the Native American tribes as sovereign nations, okay? Everybody's favorite Supreme Court Chief Justice. There you go. All right, talk to you guys later. See you.